So I'm just going to talk a bit briefly today about the OBDIIC&C CAN LTO, and this particular OBDIIC&C you can see here is running pretty much the same software as I've sent to John, and here we have a single LTO BMS board, and it's all powered by this 12 volt power supply, and there are two BCM foolers here, but they're just to provide various voltages for the taps on the LTO board, so we get some actual sensible data back from it. So the first thing you have to do is you have to establish the IDs for your particular boards and then enter them into the software. So to establish the IDs, you have to go into the menu. Now this particular OBDIIC is not connected to a car, so there will be some delays while it's waiting for information that never arrives and it times out. But I'm going to force start this one so that it gets through the startups and goes through to the menu. And you can see here it's set up so I can program it with newer versions of the software. So clearly there's errors and all sorts going on at the moment, as you would expect, because it's not connected to anything, communication errors, etc. with the IMA CNC. But anyway, we're going to the menu, and to go into the menu you just press the center. So now it's a question of scrolling up or down until we get to the appropriate entry in the menu, and it's the LTO ID discover function. So it's probably, well, I'll show you, I'll scroll down, that's the easiest probably. You have to get the entry you want onto the top line, and it's a fair way down because there's a lot of stuff in the OBDIIC&C now. So we come into the IDs, we don't want those yet, we want, there we are, LTO BMS ID info, and you'll see it says here C, and it's a command, so that means in order to activate it you have to press the button over to the left. So we press the button to the left, and it'll just give us a bit of an information to connect them in individually. So we get the first block here, as you can see. So I don't know whether you can see here, but this block is actually ID 204, as we've already established. So it's telling us it's ID 204, it's telling us the decimal ID is 04, and some voltages, etc. at the moment. So that is that for that. So what we can do now then is we can enter, so you would do that for all, you would plug in each BMS board individually onto your harness and note down all the IDs and where they are in the blocks, and then you would come out of this and you would go back up the menu to the actual IDs, and you can see the ID positions here. So you can see this is the ID positions. The OBDIIC&C can have up to 8 BMS boards attached to it, which gives a maximum of 96 cells, and that's 4 double blocks, or 8 blocks of 12 cells. So you have to put your IDs in order, and you always have to start with ID 0. So you would choose the lowest ID number of your cells, so you might have 04, 05, 06 and 07, so you would start by putting 04 into this position here. So actually we'll do that. So this is a variable, see it says V, so you go right to access this. So we can see it's currently set to 03, so I'm going to go up to increase that to 4, and I'm going to press to confirm that, and then I'll press up to confirm that again. So we can see now that's set to, the top one is now set to 04. So if we wanted to set the next one, so you would scroll down until ID 1 was on the top line, then you would go right and set that to whatever particular ID that might be. So we'll set that to a 5 in this case. We'll confirm. So you can see now if I just scroll back up, ID 1 and 2 have now been set to 4 and 5. So you would do that for all your IDs until you've got all your blocks entered in. In John's case, I think this would be 6. So you'd go from ID 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and you would just leave the 6 and 7 with whatever they are currently set to, because the system will ignore those anyway. So if we just go back up the menu, well, there is another, I haven't got all these grouped very well, these functions yet, but they will be eventually. But there is a cell count. I'll find it for you in a minute. Oh yeah, here we are, LT cells number. LTO cells number. Now this is the total number of cells in your pack, so you can see in this particular instance it's set to 48 because that's how many cells I have in my pack. In John's case I set this to 72 for him when I sent him the firmware. So basically his firmware is the same as this with a few slight alterations for US cars, US ECM, etc, etc. So once you've set got all your IDs and entered them into the ID spaces on the OBDIIC&C, come out of this, and the OBD will restart, but I'm going to have to force start it obviously because it's not connected to anything. So I'll force start it, and then you get onto the primary display screen. Now because you've got more than 4 blocks, because I've only got 4 boards, you will have more display screens than I have, but there are rotating display screens. So the first display screen would be this, but when you first start with your LTO blocks it might not be, but you can soon sort that out. So by pressing right from the main screen you go to the secondary screen, and then by pressing right again then you start going through your blocks, and you see this is the one that we put in position 0. So it's telling us that ID is 204 and it's telling us the voltages for that block. So then you go to the second block, but there isn't one fitted, and there isn't one fitted for the next one either, or the next one. So it would scroll through 4 blocks in my case because I've only got 4, but if in the case of John's you'd have 6 lots of blocks there, and it would give you the summary screen, which is the total of all the blocks added together, high voltage, low voltage, average voltage, deviation, etc. And then it would go back to the primary screen, and that's probably the one you want to leave on the display at any one time. So you can see it's got various things going on here. I've got command here on the top here, which is just telling me what my IMA-CNC is doing, so you can change that to something else if you don't want that. And then you've got pack voltage here, highest cell, lowest cell, and this is just telling us how many times through this sort of main program loop it's doing. Again, that's mainly for my benefit. You can change that to a different parameter if you want to. So I'll just go through some of the other functions with this OBDIIC&C. So this is the obviously CAN modified one. So up restarts the device, and that's the same as it is currently. So if you press up it will restart. I'm not going to do that now. If you press down, that goes into the normal state of charge and fan control, so up to set the BCM state of charge to 75%, etc, etc, and left cycles through the fan speed options. So I'm not going to do that now, so press to exit that, and we go back to our main screen. So if we press, one of the most interesting features now is we press left, this takes us to the IMA flag control. So if you have a IMA-CNC and a BCM interceptor connected to this, then this can set flags if a cell goes over voltage, as you've seen in the videos, and prevent assist and regeneration. And these will be set if there was an error, and then you can clear these individually or set these as you wish, as you can see here. So if you wanted to prevent any regeneration, you can go right and set the RLF regen limit flag, and if you wanted to prevent any assist, then you could press this one up, and that would set the assist limit flag, and vice versa to clear. You can see clearing and setting the flags. So the device will set flags automatically itself if it detects errors, and then you have to come into this screen to manually clear them. In a slightly later version of the software, which I haven't sent out yet, then there is an auto clear setting, so after a certain amount of seconds without errors it will auto clear the flags, and that's coming later on. So it is in this particular version, but it's not in the one I've sent out. So I come out of that, go back to the menu, and I've forgotten what right does. Oh, right is the display screens. Sorry, yes, as I mentioned there. And whatever display screen you leave it on, it should be, I think, the default display screen when you restart the device. However, if it isn't, what you can do is you can go into this, and you can come down here and go into the menu, and you'll see there is an entry which says, once we get to it, start screen. You can see it says number 5, so that's the 5th screen along, so you can change that number to, so it starts on whatever screen you want. And this is numbered from the block IDs upwards. So the first start screen will always be the lowest CAN ID entry that you've made in the CAN ID LTO BMS list. Only once you get above that number will you then start seeing the standard screens. So for instance, with my setup, screen 05 is the standard parameters screen, because I've got 4 screens worth of or 5 screens worth of LTO stuff before that, and it goes from 0 to 4, which is 5, and then 5 is actually 6 if you like, and that is the start screen for my setup. But you can change that to whichever screen you want. That might sound a bit confusing, but it does become clear. So that is where we are. There's millions of things in the menus, as you know. Setting parameters is different to how it used to be now. You have to have yourself a printed out list. I have to save space, obviously, to get all this extra functionality in. So I've had to lose some slight flexibility there, but the parameters are basically in this list now. So you just go into the menu, scroll down till you get past all the LTO stuff, and then you'll come to the parameters. So parameter 0 is the parameter on the top left hand corner of the screen, parameter 1 is the parameter on the top right hand corner of the screen, and then you work your way down and it alternates left, right. So you would change that to whatever decimal value for the parameter you want from the list that you can print out. So it's quite easy to set it, and once you set it, hopefully you don't need to fiddle around with it too much. But you unfortunately don't have the descriptive text now, because I couldn't fit that into the software. So I'll just come out of that. So obviously you've got 0 to 7 are your first 8 parameters, and then we have 8 hidden parameters, and you'll see that the 7th parameter is a V, which is a variable, which means you can change that one, but you can't change the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th, because they're all used internally by the system to do things like the lean burn check, and to do things like the engine coolant temperature check, and various other things that happen in the background to protect the system, and it needs that information in the background for it to run. And we've got a few spare entries that are not currently used, and it will go around to the beginning of the menu again. So I'll come out of that and it will restart. Obviously it won't restart unless I force it to, because it's not connected to anything. And we get back to our main screen, and away we go. So once you've got all your BMS IDs in the correct place, you've detected all your IDs, written them all down, you've got them all in, and eventually here you will get some detailed information about the total pack voltage, high, low, and you'll have your 7 or 8 or 6 in the case of John's block screens. If we go through the screens again, I'll just show you. So you'd have he would have 6 of these screens, whereas I've only got 4. And if I want to leave that as the default, I can do. So I'll just, but I don't want to. I prefer the other. So I have to go through the screens to get back to the previous one, which is the one I wanted, which is this is the default screen that I like. So there's a lot of information there to take in, but it's important in all these videos to try and absorb what's going on. This is it's a complicated bit of kit, and all this LTO stuff is quite complicated, but it's not insurmountable or non-achievable. You've just got to take your time, follow the examples, and apply yourself. You must have the manuals if you're going to do any sort of modification like this. Having the owner's manuals is an absolute must, and if you just persevere, I'm sure we'll all get there in the end.